All right, it's Mortgage 101, your guide to home ownership, and we are thrilled to be on the air on the weekend here in Halifax and, of course, our nation's capital, Ottawa. It's always fun. We get the bright lights going here, and people should know, by the way, if you're listening out when you're listening out there in Radioland, that we're recording here in your digs here, and this is all on the web as well after the fact. It's all recorded.
Yes, we're going to be on
the video
World Wide
snippets
Web
as well. So people should know. Let people know how they can find this on the web as well if they want to.
Okay, well, we're on Facebook and, Instagram and, all the socials. But I think checking us out on our website is the easiest place, and then you can go to all our social media. Yeah. So if you visit us at teamclinton.ca/radio, links to everything. Right. We have hundreds of blog posts, and we actually put up videos so you can see what we look like. You can see us saying these words right now live. I know normally when it's radio, it's like, is that like 1D when you can only hear?
I don't know. What's 1D mean?
I don't know. But we're definitely like at least 2D now because you'll see the video and the audio.
Yes.
And, maybe some of you don't even want to hear our voice and you can just read what we have to say.
Exactly. So let's kind of tee up. We've got a guest coming up this today, correct?
Yes, we do. Yeah. We do have a guest, which maybe some of our listeners will be intrigued to hear. I know, obviously, I'm intrigued to hear. We have the president of the corporation that my business is under, and he's going to be giving some insights about what's going on across this country. Obviously, at a leadership level, you see kind of what's going on in every market across the country. I have a little bit of I have the blinders on to what's going on in Halifax. I have a little bit of, insight on what's going on in Ottawa. Sure. Obviously, like we're on the radio there. But, my business is, in Halifax and really around Atlantic Canada. I live here and I work here, and that's really where I have the most of my, knowledge and data. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on across this country. I can say from what I have heard, I'm actually just freshly back from Vancouver. Right. The Mortgage Professional Canada National Conference was in Vancouver this year. So I got to spend, a glorious 5 days on the West Coast, enjoying very nice weather, but also talking to mortgage professionals and lenders and business partners from across this country and just getting the insights on what's going on, in their market. And it certainly, I think we said it before, there's a storm coming in real estate. Yep. And I think there's a storm coming in mortgage lending. And, I think in some ways we're already in the storm.
Okay, so I want to kind of revisit that storm that you're talking about, but we just want to tee up the rest of the segment. So that's the next segment. We've got our guest. And then in the third segment, we're going to talk about the Bank of Canada and interest rates, and inflation, which is
obviously it's a very, very hot topic.
Right. On my talk show, it's inflation every single day. We take calls and people are calling in. There was a survey done by Narrative Research. 90% of people who responded to the survey are very concerned about inflation. I mean, that is a massive number, right? 90%.
Yeah, so. we talk to clients every day, and obviously that is on the forefront of everyone's mind. There was actually some inflation data that came out today, Todd, and today we're midweek. We're recording this in advance. Yeah. It came out saying that inflation in Canada is down. We're now down to about 6.9%. Yeah. We're nowhere near the target. So, for anyone who's excited about it being a little bit less, I mean, it is good news. It's going in the right direction, but things are still very, very tough. And I think the one big concern is really around food and really food insecurity. Gas, fuel. I drive a diesel SUV. Wow. I've never
$2.50 a liter.
I've never ever seen it.
Good thing you can afford it.
Well, I can, but you know what, Todd? Not everyone can. Yeah. And I really am cognizant of that. We have talks with consumers every single day, and we're talking with very educated consumers, Todd. Right. That you think that people that make above average income will not be impacted by something like inflation. Right. But guess what? They're feeling it just like everybody else.
We're going to talk about inflation after, so let's not get too far into that.
Oh, of course.
And we're going to close the segment out talking about...
We're really going to talk about first-time home buyers. Like, is it a right time to do a transaction? I think we'll certainly share what my insights are. And you know what? It might be controversial.
Okay, well, that's what it's all about, controversy. We love controversy on the radio.
I mean, hopefully people will stay tuned in throughout our entire
stick around, everybody. We've got all kinds of things to talk about. So let's in this first let's talk a little bit about the market here in Halifax. Mm-hmm. And we were chatting before we were recording, and you were mentioning that it's a little soft right now. Basically.
Yeah, I think things were starting to soften maybe back in July. Todd, I'll be 100% honest with you. Obviously, we're in the thick of things. Things are very busy in July and August, and going into September, it was even softer. Yep. And I think in October, it's softer yet again. What's interesting though, things are really pacing up in November. So I don't know if it maybe was a little bit of a blip for, 2 or 3 months where, inflation was really hitting people. People were getting concerned. There was a lot going on in the media. Let's be honest. Every single day, it's a talk about inflation and what's going on with rates and everything. And I don't know if people really hit the pause button for a moment.
Right.
And it was a pause on purchases. It was a pause on refinances, But there's certain mortgage transactions you just can't avoid getting.
That's right.
If you're buying a house, you really need to get a mortgage.
That's right.
And if your mortgage is coming up for renewal, you really need to renew it.
Yeah.
So, I think things are starting to re-normalize. I think it is going to be quiet.
Yep.
I heard with some lenders, in Vancouver from our conference, many lenders are down 20, 30, and even 40% from where it was last year.
Yep.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
We were really working at a breakneck speed. It was almost too much, Todd.
Right.
We were turning customers away, and we're never in that business where we ever want to tell a customer no. We always want to have capacity, but, it really was challenging. I'll be 100% honest with you. I think some people, their mental health struggled just with how busy it was all the time. So, I'm okay for it to go back to maybe a 2019 level.
Yeah.
Some people think that the sky is falling. Some people think that we're going to be in very, tough, situation here in this industry. And I think that it will for some people.
You say some people. Who are some people? Give me an example.
And I'm just going to say the real estate industry as a whole. I think some people who work within the industry, I'm not just talking about mortgage lending, I'm just talking about everyone who works within in the industry.
Yeah.
I think people that were very transactional, Todd.
Yep.
They were the one and done. They're going to have a hard time. Yeah. For us, we really think that we're in the service business. I think that we're in the advice business. And I think right now advice is needed more than ever. And, we're always scared about things like technology or there's a bank branch on every corner. You know what? The higher the rates are, the more people need advice. And I think that's what's really kind of hit home to me. I'm having a lot of conversations with customers, and I'll call it pro bono work. I'm going to use my air quotes here. But giving advice on rates.
Right.
What should you do if you're in an adjustable rate mortgage? We'll touch base. We'll touch on that later in our show. But we're having a lot of these really good conversations that might not turn into a transaction today. But I think having that level of advice for consumers will pay us dividends down the road. And I think the way that we're doing business now is going to shift. And I think that it's going to be shift to more of that advice piece. And I think the advice is going to be more important.
And let's keep it into perspective. Although things are softening, it's coming off a massive spike that we've never seen before.
Yeah,
we have to keep that into perspective.
I think 2020, 2021 into 2022, it's been really such a large increase that we weren't really, having capacity to even handle. Yeah. So, going back to a 2019 level volume, I think if the market becomes more balanced, I think that will be very healthy for consumers. Yeah,
and this will tie in, of course, dovetail nicely into our segment about first-time homebuyers, which is great news for first-time homebuyers. Not great news, but it's better news than
I think there are some positive pieces here that first-time homebuyers can take away, and we'll certainly dive into that at the end of the show. Yeah, absolutely. And so we look forward to people sticking around. So we've got a guest coming up after the commercial break. And again, just to review so people stick around the rest of the show. The third segment, we're going to talk about the Bank of Canada
and inflation, which is massive. And then we're going to wrap up the show with first-time home buyers. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. And you say there's going to be some controversy with what you're going to say?
Yeah, I think maybe at the end of the show, there could be some controversy. So tune in and send us a tweet and to let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.